Welcome back, Junkies on 106.7 The Fan. Remember, you join us this Saturday, Bracket Room in Arlington for Washington Day Uncensored pregame show, 2 p.m. before Washington takes on the Eagles, voted best sports bar in D.C. by In the Capitol. Bracket Room's DMV's premier sports lounge and eatery. You can visit cbsdc.com/events for details. I believe it's me and EB on Saturday at the Bracket Room. So great spot to watch the games, hang out, have some beers, have some great food. Join us right now, talk some college football. A guy used to play here in D.C. with the Washington Redskins. Was a stud at the University of Florida, former Gator. Now you can hear him calling games on Westwood 1. Talk some college football playoffs with Chris Doering. Hey, Chris.
Hey, my boys. Good to be back.
Chris, what's up? Chris, where do you rank? We were just talking about during the break. Where do you rank at Florida in terms of for receivers in touchdowns?
Career touchdowns, that would be number one at Florida, and also number one in the SEC, at least for another game or so. I got two more ahead of Amari Cooper, who's been lighting it up this year. So I'm the all-time career touchdown reception leader in the conference and at the university for at least a little bit longer, at least in the SEC.
That's not bad for a white guy.
Not bad for a white guy, right?
That's
So
right.
if Cooper gets shut out, I mean, he's going to the pros, so
Yeah,
it's probably not going to be shut out. But so you're rooting against Alabama hard.
No. I'm rooting for the SEC. I'm just rooting for Amari Cooper to catch a lot of passes and get tackled at the 1 yard line. You know?
That's right. And just have Derrick Henry run them in.
That's right. We want to see those rushing stats go up, bro.
Now, Amari Cooper. We were talking about Amari Cooper the other day. I think he's one of the best college wide receivers, certainly one of the best receivers I've seen, but one of the best football players I've ever seen. Where do you put him in terms of all-time receivers that you've seen play in college football?
Yeah, I mean, he's become one of the best. And that's the thing that, people ask me about who I would have voted for if I had a Heisman vote. Now, obviously, you look at Marcus Mariota, a deserving Heisman winner, especially for the body of work that he put up during his entire career at Oregon. But to me, you look at Amari Cooper and what he's meant to that Alabama team. This is a historically pretty conservative offense, and obviously Lane Kiffin's opened it up a little bit. But he's meant more to that team, over 1,600 yards of reception yardage this year. The touchdowns we talked about earlier, and the touchdowns come at the biggest times in the game.
Yeah.
That Auburn game was slipping away from them, and he made two back-to-back touchdowns on back-to-back possessions that really turned the fortunes in that one. They made it a point to get him the football early and often against Missouri in the SEC title game. And I think the thing that's most impressive to me about him is he's become a complete wide receiver. It used to be early in his career he was just a deep guy, could run past people with the speed and athleticism, but he's become a guy now that they can line up in the slot, they can utilize him out of the backfield, really runs nice routes, catches the ball well with his hands, and has become a guy. Julio Jones was a guy a couple years ago from Alabama that you thought, wow, this guy is a big-time difference maker. And in my opinion, Amari Cooper's become even better than what Julio Jones was at Alabama.
And Julio was bigger. Now, Amari is not a big guy. He's probably – they list him at 6'1". He might be a little shorter than that.
Yeah.
But he's thick, and he's got strong legs, and he's fast, and he's got great hands. I mean, he's got the – besides the fact that he's a little shorter than what you'd want, I mean, he's not 6'4", but he's got everything else.
He does, and I think the thing that I like the most about him is his work ethic. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I saw guys at the NFL level that came in out of college, had great college careers, but just really plateaued because they didn't have that work ethic. And you guys know, after being around it as long as you have, there's such a thin line between a guy that goes to the Pro Bowl and a guy maybe that gets cut in the final cuts after preseason camp. And so it's just a very competitive league. I think the work ethic that he's demonstrated, the way he's improved his game, the way that he's been coachable at Alabama, I think it's going to really tantalize a lot of the GMs and coaches when it comes time for the NFL draft in the spring next year.
Yeah.
I don't know if Chris is this type of guy, but you know what? I hope he is. Give us a couple of those guys who just blew it, didn't have work ethic in the NFL that should have been better.
I'm not gonna mention any names.
Oh,
but
you stink.
There were guys that I was amazed at. Man, I thought this guy was a great college wide receiver and just came in. And, maybe I was fortunate because I played for a guy like Steve Spurrier, and my wide receiver coach was Dwayne Dixon at the University of Florida. Learned so much about the intricacies of running routes and how to get in and out of breaks and shoulder lean and getting your head around. And there's so many guys that just depended on their pure athleticism. Even at the college level, you think about how great the competition is in the SEC. There were guys that I saw that were tremendous receivers in college that just never really panned out too much in the NFL because they didn't have that work ethic and coaching behind them.
We were talking about the the quarterbacks who've won the Heisman over the last, I don't know, let's just say 20 years, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a curse or if it's just a legitimate trend. If the position is just that difficult to play at the next level, it obviously is. But, I mean, listen to these names, Chris, okay? Obviously, Mariota this year, who knows about him? Jameis, who knows about him? Manziel looked awful last week. Robert Griffin, who knows? He's a disaster here. Cam Newton looks like he's regressing a little bit. Sam Bradford's never healthy. Tebow could never make it. Troy Smith could never make it. Leinard's out of the league. Jason White was never in the league. Eric Crouch was never in the league. I mean, you can go down the list. And it's, Warfel. I mean, there's just so many guys that were so good in college that won the Heisman that can't crack an egg in the NFL.
I think the gap is widening between what makes a great college quarterback and what the NFL demands are. I think you look at what's being asked of guys in college these days with the spread offenses and their ability to run the football as well and be a threat there in the running game. As you guys see firsthand up there with RG3's situation, you can't put your quarterback in a position where he's going to take as many hits as he did in his first season. That's a lot of wear and tear for a guy that you're paying a ton of money to and you're depending on to be around for a long period of time. And I think that the game has evolved in college with the way they try to outnumber the defenses by making the quarterback a legitimate running threat in the box there. It's a much different game than what the NFL requires. And even though you've seen a little bit more athleticism at the position, I think it still always goes back to the guy that's the pocket passing quarterback, the Tom Brady, the Peyton Manning, the Drew Brees, as we saw last night. Those are the guys that are going to be long-term success stories at that quarterback position.
So if you had to put money on it right now, do you think Marcus Mariota will be more of a like a Ryan Tannehill? Will he be like more of a Ryan Tannehill, Andy Dalton, cap out at that level, or do you think he'll be better than that?
I have some skepticism about him. I think he has evolved into more of a passing threat than what we saw earlier in his career at Oregon. I did their game against Stanford early in the season for Westwood One and was pretty amazed at how little he was running compared to what he used to, and certainly that's a threat that you want to use at the college ranks. But I think he's going to have to work on his accuracy a little bit. He was pretty inaccurate that game against Stanford, and some of the decision making throwing the football. But in the end, as you guys know, you're not getting guys wide open like you do at Oregon, and
right.
So you're going to have to be much more accurate fitting them into those smaller windows.
Talking college football with Chris Doering, now calls games on Westwood One. Of course, was former Gator, former Redskins receiver, amongst many NFL stops. I think you had like 6 or 7 NFL stops. Let's get into the college football playoffs. Do you give Ohio State much of a shot against Bama?
You know what? I don't, but I also didn't give them much of a shot against Wisconsin, and they came out and rolled the Badgers pretty good. So, as much as we down here in Gatorland don't necessarily love Urban Meyer, you have to respect what he's been able to do everywhere he's been. The guy recruits extremely well. He motivates his teams well. Little surprised. You guys probably know the spread. It's almost like double digits last time I saw it, right? Wasn't it 8 or 9 points?
Both of the semifinal games are 9.5.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a lot of points for a team that's shown that they can make adjustments despite losing quarterback after quarterback. They've done a nice job of kind of having that next man up mentality. So, I imagine it'll be a little closer. We've looked at Alabama throughout the season, and really with the exception of that Missouri game, I don't know that we've ever seen a complete performance from them. One game they look like they're great on defense, but they can't score, like that Arkansas narrow win, 14-13 early in the season.
Yeah.
Then you see them give up 600-plus yards against Auburn, and they can score every time they got the ball on offense. But if you're not putting a complete game together at this time of year, you got to be peaking at the right time of the season, like we talk about in the NCAA basketball tournament. I think Alabama and Oregon are both peaking at the right time, but I think Ohio State can hang in there with them and make it competitive at least.
This is the way I feel about the game. Alabama, a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Auburn ran all over them, but they were able to outscore Auburn. Ohio State's quarterback, Cardale Jones, is the third stringer, played great in the Big Ten championship, but now he's got 3 weeks, essentially, Chris, to think about the stage he's going to be on. And on the flip side, you've got Nick Saban preparing for this guy for 3 weeks. I think you give Nick Saban more than a week to prepare for a quarterback, especially an inexperienced one. I think he's going to devise a plan where he kind of shuts him down. That's the way I feel. I agree. I would lay the 9.5.
No, I agree with you in terms of the preparation of Nick Saban. I don't know if we've seen anybody prepare better with a longer amount of time. You look at the way that they play over the years in these national championship games. I think that's what's going to be interesting now. all of them have more time to prepare for these semifinal games, but it's a quicker turnaround for that final if Alabama's able to make it.
Right.
I do think that's an advantage for Nick Saban, as good as he is at looking at films and being able to come up with a plan in that shorter period of time. But you're right, the longer preparation time is going to give Alabama a huge advantage, in my opinion, as well.
They got so many stud defensive linemen. I think they're going to get after them. All right, Oregon, Florida State in the Rose Bowl, basically a home game for Oregon. Florida State's it's been squeaking every week, and Jameis obviously hasn't had the year that he had last year. But, man, there's just something about them. I don't think they'll beat Oregon, but I think they'll be a tougher test than most people think. And I just think that he's a gamer, and he doesn't care what people think or say about him off the field. And I think Fisher's a great coach, perfect coach for him. I think this might be a closer test. But Oregon's got so much speed.
Think about it, though. We're talking about a team that's the defending national champion that hadn't lost in, 28 games or something like that.
Haven't lost in 2 years, right.
And we're not giving them much of a chance against Oregon, which is crazy. Oregon's always kind of been known for having that inexplicable loss, like they did earlier in the season against Arizona. And when you're talking about athletes, Oregon has tremendous speed, but in Florida, the hotbed for athletes, Florida State has been able to pick the cream of the crop from this state and as well nationally for the last couple of years. They're at the tops of every recruiting ranking for the last couple of seasons. So, I think that they can match up athletically. You look at it, Florida State is a team of destiny with the way that they've been able to pull all these games out, or they're just skating on thin ice and pretty lucky. Either way, they've been able to avoid losing. Is this the game that they let Oregon hang around? It's too close and they lose the football game, or is this another one where they're able to pull it out in the end because this is another season that they're destined for a national title?
Real quick, your thoughts on Muschamp going? Now he's Auburn defensive coordinator, gets a job there in the conference, and then McElwain coming in from Colorado State to Florida. What do you think?
Huge hire for Auburn. I thought Muschamp was going to end up in South Carolina. Maybe it was wishful thinking. I was hoping he was going to end up there with the head ball coach, but a great get there. $1.6 million a year that they're paying Muschamp. Obviously, an investment in what they think is a chance to make a run at the national title in the next couple seasons. And with Gus Malzahn's offense, very well could be the case. Now, in terms of Jim McElwain, this is a guy I think Gator fans weren't necessarily all that fired up about to begin with, but I think the more they've got to be around him and hear him on the press conferences and see what he's done at Colorado State, and the fact that he's going to bring in an offensive-minded attack, much different than what Florida had under Will Muschamp, I think it's got some Gator fans excited. And he hit the ground running recruiting, been out there working the recruiting trails pretty hard already.
Who did Gator fans want if they had their choice?
Well, Gator fans are probably a little unrealistic, thinking that they could have had Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly was the name that everybody was talking about, but I didn't think there was any chance of that happening from the get-go.
Gotcha. Chris, man, we got to get you on the show more often, man. It's fun.
Let me know anytime. Love you guys, man.
All right, brother. Take care. Happy holidays to you.
Hey, happy holidays to you guys.
It's always been great on the show.
He's great.
Back when we used to have him on back when
he's
on
money,
HFS.
by the way. He's money. I'm just talking to our producers.
He's definitely rooting for Amari Cooper to be shut out.
Yeah. You know how many catches Amari Cooper had this year? 115.
Sick. Like I said, I heard that he was the best prospect since Randy Moss. And I just watched how good Odell Beckham Jr. was.
Yeah.
And just based on that, if he's far better than Odell Beckham Jr., he should be the number one pick in the draft.
I don't know if he's far better. I think he's better, but remains to be seen. Depends on what system he gets into and who his quarterback is.
All right, join us next. Former Redskin special team stud Lorenzo Alexander now stars for the Arizona Cardinals.